Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope this lighting is okay. We currently have one of our blinds broken, so the light is all over the place. But I hope you don't mind too much because I've got a really exciting video. So if you don't know, for the past, I think it was like 2 weeks or 10 days, Hay Festival has been going on in Wales, and that is the most amazing book festival ever. And I was lucky enough to go down there from Thursday to Sunday, and it was just the best time ever. I saw loads of amazing talks from like seeing Margaret Atwood, Douglas Stewart, Elif Shafak, to name a few. Like, it was so amazing. I saw Dua Lipa in a bookshop. I was so starstruck, but I was too shy to say anything. But it was just the best time ever. And Hay is my favourite place on earth. It is just absolutely jam-packed with loads of second-hand and first-hand bookshops. So I went a bit crazy and I bought quite a lot of books. So I'm going to tell you about the books that I bought in Hay. I feel like there's a really good mix here. There's some well-known ones, but there's also quite a lot of ones that I didn't really know about beforehand and that I feel like are a bit lesser known. So my first stop when I went to Hay was my favourite bookshop. I feel like every book is £4.95 in there for some reason. And it's absolutely jam-packed full of books from floor to ceiling, packed up on the floor, on the carpets, loads of different like higgledy-piggledy rooms, and I just absolutely love it. So the first book I got is Parable of the Sower. I think it's Sower, and I've heard some really good things about this book, and it's been on my radar for a while, but I sort of forgot about it. So when I saw it, I thought I may as well pick it up because I have heard some really good reviews. So it says, America is a place of chaos where violence rules and only rich and powerful are safe. Lauren Olamina, a young woman with the extraordinary power to feel the pain of others as her own, records everything she sees of this broken world in her journal. Then one terrible night, everything alters beyond recognition, and Lauren must make her voice heard for the sake of those she loves. Soon her vision becomes reality and her dreams of a better way to live gain the power to change humanity forever. So it sounds a bit like a dystopian novel, which I haven't read for a while, so I'm definitely in the market to read one and really excited to get to this. So the next book I picked up is one from Kurt Vonnegut. I love Kurt Vonnegut and I've not read this one before. So this is Slapstick or Lonesome No More. I've read quite a few from Kurt Vonnegut now. I really love his writing style. He puts humour into his writing and his books, which I just love. I really enjoyed Slaughterhouse-Five and Breakfast of Champions, so excited to get to this one. It says, Manhattan has become the island of death. The former president of the United States stands barefoot in a purple toga around a cooking fire in the lobby of the Empire State Building. He is Dr. Wilbur Daffodil Swain, and Slapstick or Lonesome No More is his story. One of monstrous twins, orgies, revenge, golf, utopian schemes, and very little toothbrushing. In this post-apocalyptic black comedy dedicated to Laurel and Hardy, Vonnegut is at his most hilarious, grotesque, and personal. So this book just sounds so wacky. And if you have watched any of my previous book hauls, I feel like you know that I love a wacky book. So really excited to get to this one. I think it's going to be a funny read. And then on the absolute flip side is a much darker read, but my boyfriend got me this and said that I have to read it because it is amazing. It's about the atomic bomb which was dropped in Hiroshima, and I think this book features a number of different stories for people who were there on that day. So I think it's going to be a really, really sad book, but yeah, my boyfriend said it was amazing, so looking forward to getting to this one. I think it'll be really insightful. Then the next book that I got from the bookshops in Hay is Angela Carter, Night at the Circus, and I have never read any Angela Carter before, which I think is crazy, so I really wanted to get to her. Apparently she has some like magical realism in her work, which I'm really drawn to, so really excited to read some of her work and see why she is so well loved. So this book says, is Sophie Feather's Toast of Europe's Capitals part swan or all fake? Courted by the Prince of Wales and painted by Toulouse-Lautrec, she is an aerialist extraordinaire and star of Colonel Kearney's circus. She is also part woman, part swan. Jack Walser, an American journalist, is on a quest to discover the truth behind her identity. Dazzled by his love for her and desperate for the scoop of a lifetime, also has no choice but to join the circus on its magical tour through turn of the 19th century London, St. Petersburg and Siberia. I'm so intrigued by this book. It sounds so fun. I cannot wait to read it. I love the idea of reading about a travelling circus. That just sounds like the best time ever. So really, really excited to get to this one. And then the final book that I got from the bookshop before I move on to the books that I got from the talks that I watched is a bit of a different one. It is The Snow Leopard by Peter Matthiessen. I think that's how you say his name, I'm not sure. But I think this was actually a non-fiction. And it says, across the most awesome mountains on earth, Peter went in search of the rare snow leopard. His dangerous trip became a pilgrimage, a luminous journey of the heart. So I think this book is going to have some really beautiful descriptions around landscape. I hope it does, and I hope it has that sense of adventure in it. So really excited to read this little non-fiction one. And now onto the books that I got because of authors that I saw in talks. And oh my goodness, I went to the book signs afterwards and I feel like I was such a bumbling idiot. I was so starstruck. So the first one is Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. And let me show you the signed version. So we got it for me and my boyfriend. So there it is signed. He was so lovely. He was so great in the talk. He was so personable and funny and kind. So I had to pick up his next book. I read Sugar Bane last year and thought it was absolutely incredible. If you haven't read Sugar Bane, I highly recommend it. So I'm really excited to get to this one. The back doesn't give too much away, so I'm very intrigued. All it sort of says is that it's a gay Romeo and Juliet, which I am so here for. So excited to read it. I feel like his last book was such a success and I was so moved by it that I'm really excited to read this next one. Then my next book that I got was Honor by Alicia Fack, and she was in the same talk as Douglas Stewart. And I feel like she was just so eloquent in what she was saying and her points about politics and these gaps in history that we choose to ignore. She's just such a brilliant mind, and I absolutely loved her book, The Island of Missing Trees. So really excited to read this one. Again, I got it signed, which I was so excited about. I'm so happy for all of these signed copies. But this book says, in a small Kurdish village on the border of Turkey and Syria, twin sisters are born. One becomes a local midwife. The other, Pembe, marries Adam, and they move to London in search of a better life. Unable to make it work, Adam moves out and leaves the couple's eldest son, Iskander, to become keeper of the family's honour. But when his mother begins to see another man, Iskander discovers that you can love someone with all your heart and yet be willing to hurt them. So really intrigued by this one. I love the way she writes about family, so I think this is going to be another really strong book from her. Can't wait to read it. Then as well, part of that talk with Alicia Fack and Douglas Stewart, they were actually discussing Salman Rushdie, and he had a little sort of Zoom interview in the talk, which was really interesting. And they were sort of talking about his life and all of his work and why he is so successful. So it was just such an interesting talk. And of course I had to get his new book. I read Midnight's Children a while ago now, so really keen to read some more from him and expand my Salman Rushdie knowledge. So when they were actually discussing this book in the talk, I had to pick it up because it just sounded so interesting. It says, in the wake of an unimportant battle between two long-forgotten kingdoms in 14th century southern India, a 9-year-old girl has a divine encounter that will change the course of history. After witnessing the death of her mother, the grief-stricken Pampa Campana becomes a vessel for a goddess who begins to speak out one of the girl's mouths. Granting her powers beyond Pampa Campana's comprehension, the goddess tells her that she will be instrumental in the rise of a great city called Biznaga, Victory City, the wonder of the world. And then I think it spans over the next 250 years. So this girl lives an extraordinarily long life, and you sort of see how this town changes and develops and how people come and go. And it was one of those things when I was listening to them talk about it, I wish I'd read it before the talk so I could sort of know what they were talking about. So I thought I'm gonna have to read it immediately to see what all the hype is about. So another talk I went to was by the journalist John Ronson. I think he is so good at what he does. He is such a good journalist. He has some really famous pieces of work out there and some really famous stories. I highly recommend, if you haven't heard of his work before, go and do some research because he has such amazing work out there. where he captures some such interesting stories of people's lives. He covers such a wide breadth of people as well that there is something for everyone. So I highly recommend you to check out his work, and his talk was so good. It's actually a podcast episode coming out, so you will be able to listen to it. But the way he talks to an audience, he just knows exactly what he's doing. He just knows how to grip an audience and talk in a really conversational, relatable way. So yeah, love Jon Ronson, and if you haven't watched anything from him before, then definitely do so. He's got books out, he's got podcasts out, he's got all sorts out. But this is one of his earlier works, I believe, and it says, Jon Ronson's subjects have included people who believe that goats can be killed by the power of a really hard stare, and people who believe that the world is ruled by 12-foot lizard men. In Out of the Ordinary, a collection of his journalism from The Guardian, he turns his attention to irrational beliefs much closer to home, investigating the ways in which we sometimes manage to convince ourselves that all manner of lunacy makes perfect sense, mainstream, domestic, ordinary insanity. Whether he finds himself promising his son that he'll be at his side forever, dressed in a Santa costume, or trying to understand why hundreds of apparently normal people would suddenly start speaking in tongues in a hut in Kidderminster, he demonstrates repeatedly how we all succumb to deeply irrational beliefs that grow to inform our everyday existence. And my boyfriend was actually reading this on the way home, and he kept laughing out loud because Jon Ronson is just so funny and tells stories in such a funny way that you just instantly love him. So I'm really excited to get this myself. And then the final book I picked up is actually a bit of an unusual one for me, and one that I wouldn't normally pick up. But we went to a talk by this author, and just the way she spoke about her subject matter in such a beautiful way. The line for the signing was a million miles long, because I think everyone felt the same, that we just had to read her book because it was just so beautiful and so interesting the way that she framed it all. And obviously it is such an interesting topic anyway, and that is the history of books and how they came to be. She is so knowledgeable on her subject, so I cannot wait to read about this, because what she was saying in the talk was just so interesting. Like, this is talking like hundreds and hundreds of years back to the first library that ever existed, where there's all scrolls and stuff instead of books, obviously, and how these famous people that we know in history, and also some people that have been completely forgotten in history, especially women who have been forgotten in history, who were instrumental in the development of books and research and education. So I am so excited to read this book. It is Papyrus, The Invention of Books in the Ancient World by Irene Valesio. I think that's how you say her name. And they read a passage out from this book, and it was just so beautiful. Her writing was so beautiful that I just cannot wait to read it. It says, long before books were mass produced, those made of reeds from along the banks of the Nile were worth fighting and dying for. The story of the creation and preservation of books is vivid and dramatic and rife with bloodshed and megalomania. Their survival can be traced to the battlefields of Alexander the Great, beneath the eruptions of Mount Vesuvius, to Cleopatra's palaces and the scene of Hypatia's murder. So, as they say, history is crazier than fiction. So I am so excited to read this book, and I loved listening to her talk so much. So I think this is going to be a really, really great read that I enjoy. And this is actually an international bestseller. It's really popular because she is Spanish. It's really popular in Spain, sold over like 500,000 copies. So I'm excited to see the hype. So they are all the books that I got at Hay Festival. I had the best time ever. If you haven't been to Hay Festival and you love books, then I just highly urge you to go. It's just such a great time with so many big names, like Dua Lipa was doing talks, so many amazing authors doing talks, and just to hear them talk about their work and their expertise and how they came to be doing what they're doing was just so fascinating. So I'm definitely going to go again next year. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.